Hey there, guys. Welcome to Wednesday SJU. There's no good alliteration I can think of for Loki on Wednesdays, so it's a Loki Wednesday. It's me, it's Kim. How you doing, Kim?
Hello, I'm good. Thank you. Warm. We're having a bit of a heat wave over here in the UK.
Oh, same here in Los Angeles. Breaking 100 degrees yesterday. Super fun.
Oh.
Spencer has neglected his duties and is not up on Loki yet, so he won't be joining us today. But we are going to get into full spoilers for the second episode of Loki called The Variant. If you haven't seen that episode, you probably don't want to first hear us talk about it. Maybe you do, but if you don't, you should go watch it. It's on Disney Plus, and then you can come back and watch this video, which will be waiting for you with welcome arms here on YouTube. So that is your spoiler warning. One more time, spoiler warning for Loki episode 2. All right. Kim, what did you think of this here second episode of Loki?
Well, I loved it. I loved it as an extension of episode 1. It would have been nice, I felt, that if the two episodes had dropped together as they did with WandaVision, because now the way, when we'll get into the ending in a bit, I'm sure, but it feels like the story has opened up now after these first two kind of introductory episodes. But what I love about it, and what I think I'll continue to love about the show, is what the first two episodes have given us, which is a lot of buddy comedy between Owen Wilson and Tom Hiddleston, which I could just watch forever.
I think that, is such a strength of the show. Their stuff together works so well when they're just sitting in the cafeteria talking about jet skis and what have you. That is all great stuff. I can see what you mean about, I do think like maybe they didn't need to hold off on that reveal at the end of this episode so long, because while it's like, oh, it's a female Loki, it's not like it's Chris Hemsworth or someone that's going to be like, an internet breaking moment in and of itself. So I don't know if they needed to hold off on that, but I do think, this is a really cool, fun episode. I'm really liking the vibe of this show. I am curious, we'll talk about, of course, that ending, but it's like what the show will be. There's only 4 more, of course, but these first 2 had such fun stuff jumping around in time, and I don't think you want to lose that. So I am curious how they'll keep doing to the sort of time cop aspect of that. How do you like when they go to 1985 Renaissance Fair or 2050 retail market?
Well, I loved the Renaissance Fair was cool. Yeah. I loved the supermarket because it's 2050 and yet the futuristic elements are so subtle. It's basically just the same, which I loved, and yet at the same time, they're going to Pompeii,
right,
which this kind of juxtaposition of we'll recreate this really huge moment in history and make it an integral part of our show, but we'll also go forward to 2050 and it'll just be in some supermarket that you kind of recognize.
I was thinking about that because I guess it is true to life though, because there's certain things that look pretty much the same no matter what era, and the inside of a big market 30 years ago versus now, not that different. So I noticed they had like kind of big signs at the end of the aisles that had like big names. I'm like, well, that would be helpful for what would be there. And I love how they give us kernels, like it's Rock's Cart, and they say it's like Rock's Cart owns the town. So we're like, ooh, that's obviously Rocks and Oil. Have they spun off Rock's Cart? Have they changed? Have they given up on oil and it's all in on big markets? We can only surmise what the evil they're doing with these markets, right?
Yeah, no, you're right. And I was very intrigued to see what had happened in 2050 because they didn't spell it out, but on the form I think it said hurricane and it killed 10,000 or so people. So we got that coming.
Yes, I think they said a lot of climate change stuff was coming our way. Pompeii was just interesting on a personal note because about 3-4 years ago, my wife and I went to Pompeii. So I was like, oh, I've been there. I've done the tour.
Eric.
Yes.
I remember rocks from the ground, and I went to Herculaneum as well. And saved them on the windowsill of my hotel, and the cleaner must have thrown them away.
Aw, that sucks as much as when I had a cleaner throw away a poster I got as a giveaway at a Star Wars convention.
No.
I know. It was folded up inside a box. It was a whole thing. Yeah, so I do think
no.
I know it was a terror. I think, yeah, to me, my favorite part of this show remains that Mobius Loki dynamic and that interplay. To you, is that kind of the highlight, the standout of the show?
Yeah, definitely. That's what I'm tuning in for, really. And I love that it's, the Falcon and the Winter Soldier was the show that was billed as this buddy comedy. But this is the buddy comedy show, and it reminded me of 48 Hours. It's regarded as the first ever buddy cop comedy movie, and Owen Wilson is like the Nick Nolte cop that goes to recruit the Eddie Murphy convict to help him with this worst criminal.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There is a big buddy cop dynamic. Like I said, they are time cops essentially. I think the show in these first 2 episodes did a really good job of, I know that for some people, like, procedural becomes a bad word because, like, we're more into serialized TV, but sometimes you can do a lot of fun with a procedural element. And I think the idea of jumping from time to time, I mean, there's been great shows like Quantum Leap that use that, obviously. There's just something really great there about it. Now, what do you think? I mean, of course, a big other key aspect of the show is Loki. Can he be redeemed? We saw him kind of redeemed once before, but here it's like, what is he up to? Because, he keeps trying to kind of con his way, and then he tells the variant that he really wants to kind of take over the TVA himself. But of course, you're like, well, is he trying to con her as well? Is he really trying to help Mobius, or is it sort of somewhere in the middle? What do you think at this moment Loki is up to?
Yeah, I mean, we should never trust Loki, for a start. And, he talks about in this episode, the bad guys never truly being bad and good guys never truly being good. And at this point, we don't really know which camp he falls into. But is it a double bluff? I don't know. I feel like maybe it's not, because I feel like there's something sinister afoot at the TVA.
Right.
And they're kind of setting it up that way. And even Mobius, it feels a little bit like, I know that Loki is trying to persuade him that it may not be all that it seems, but he also has these hopes and dreams beyond his job and existence. He talks about the jet skis and how he'd love to go on a jet ski in this episode. He's clearly a fan of the 90s. Maybe that's where he wants to go. He drinks that energy drink, what's it called, Josta, that was out for a period in the 90s, launched by Pepsi. So he's clearly these two things say he's a fan of the 90s. That's where he wants to be.
They have to give us Owen Wilson on a jet ski by the end of this, right? Like, once you're teased with Owen Wilson riding a jet ski, you need to see Owen Wilson riding a jet ski.
They set it up, although I hope it's not like a Fonzie moment.
He's going to jump like 20 sharks. The TVA is interesting themselves because they are it's like an insane, even in the middle of like the Marvel Cinematic Universe and cosmic elements, has Loki himself is pointing out, this is an insane amount of power they wield if they created everything. But I like that he's kind of calling that out. And so I think you're right about something else is going on behind the scenes. And I do. What were you going to say?
Yeah, I was going to say just the thing is, we had a film, The Matrix, that was about exactly this, and The Matrix was sinister and to be overthrown. So the TVA obliterating the idea of free will is not cool.
No, it's not. And I'm gonna bring up, we've got Ravonna. I'm not sure if I'm saying her name right. But that character, of course, in the comics is very closely tied to Kang the Conqueror. There's no chance that's a coincidence, given Kang the Conqueror is coming to the MCU. People are already wondering if maybe he could pop up in the show. Even if he doesn't pop up in the show, though, I think they're laying the groundwork because she's much more of not that Mobius is a firm believer in the TVA, but he's the Qui-Gon Jinn, right? He's willing to work outside the rules a little bit, and she's like a little more hardline, like, no, we follow what they say. So I have a feeling, it's all going to connect to Kang, and sort of what's going on with the overall timey-wimey wonkiness of it all will be affected there.
Well, I think there's some speculation. I think that he might be one of the timekeepers, but in the comics, if I'm correct, he was an enemy of the TVA, so perhaps he's infiltrated or something.
Right. Yeah, they could go a lot of different directions with that. But speaking of like things where the comics and this MCU could diverge or touch upon each other and go in different directions, let's talk about that reveal at the end a little more. She's listed as the Variant in the credits, which is the name of the episode. But we meet Sophia Di Martino playing the main villain here, who a lot of fans are calling Lady Loki, which we can talk about the comic books and how Lady Loki works here. But she is, she's our main villain. She is the Variant. But there was something interesting in the closing credits, which is if you looked at all the credits, including the foreign translations, they didn't list the Variant as her name. They list Sylvie as her name. So here's where I go into a quick comic book background to say that in the comic books, Loki became a woman for a while because he could, and that was Lady Loki. But he also created a woman, a separate character named Sylvie, and gave her powers, and she became the Enchantress, a different Enchantress than the one that was the classic Thor villain. I see some people going into like a lot of speculation. Oh, that's what it really is. It's going to be a twist that she's not a Loki variant. What do you think, Kim, where this could all be going?
Yeah, I think that's probable. And, connecting the dots makes me think there is a bigger, badder Loki out there pulling the strings. After all, he is the mischief, and that's I'd love to think it's just his aim is just to create mischief, just to, the apple cart. But there's probably a more in-depth explanation and motivation for what he's doing. The interesting thing I think about Sylvie / Enchantress is that she received no magical training, so she's entirely unpredictable and has no idea apparently the limits of her powers. So we could maybe she's the main villain, and maybe we'll see something terrific from her.
Yeah, I think they're going to do a thing that they've done before, which is kind of blend together a lot of stuff here, because I don't think there's going to be a reveal that he made her consciously, at least for sure. Like, I don't think it's going to be like, oh yeah, I made you years ago. And she does say to him, if anyone's anyone, you're me. So I do think they think of each other as variants, and I think she is a variant of him, but she also doesn't want to be called Loki. I kind of tracked that. I watched it a second time when she's like, don't call me that. You can call me Randy. So she doesn't like the Loki name. And I think that's will probably land on Sylvie unless that foreign translation thing is totally off. I have a feeling that's what her name will end up being. But I think it might be that she is a variant of Loki, but she really wants to sort of stake her own claim on everything. And they're kind of pulling all these elements together. By the way, all those images we got of other variants of Lokis, I want to see those guys. We saw like the big sort of...
I know. What a tease.
Right?
I wrote some notes down about sports Loki was one of them. Leprechaun Loki. He was in that ill-fitting onesie, the green one.
You know how they make like action figures of Spider-Man and Batman in ridiculous costumes they've never worn in anything? That's like what I think is like for Loki. It's like, oh, we can get all these different great sports car racing Loki. We can get, referee Loki. The possibilities are endless here. And then the other character I think sort of note here was we met Hunter C20. She was played by Sasha Lane, and this is the Hunter that we'll say Sylvie for now, that the variant, she takes her, and we don't know what she does with her, but then we hear her say at the end, it's real, over and over again in a panicked way. So what do we think? Has she been Manchurian candidated? Why did she take her? And what's going to happen with that character?
She's definitely been abducted and experimented on, like many of us here on Earth.
All through time, yes.
All through time. I do not know the answer. I know my job is to speculate. I have got no idea. Do you have a thought, Eric?
No, it's like I'm trying to, because let's talk a bit more about like the ending there, and also Ryan, let me know if some stuff in the chat comes up to bounce off of. But it's like, yeah, the ending is interesting because the variant escapes with all of those bombs they use to like wipe the timelines clean and reset them. She escapes with all of them, and it sounds like she sort of sets them off, right? We're told at the end that is what has happened. Somebody just bombed the sacred timeline, we're told. And there's a huge list here. Thank you, William, for putting up some of those names that I was joking before we started taping. It's like, this is the kind of list we live for and we'll probably overanalyze, but some of it might end up being important here, of a bunch of locations, some of which are just places on Earth, but some of which are very Marvel-centric planets and other worlds, like Hala, Xandar, Vormir, Asgard, of course, is on there. Ego is on there. And they're all different eras too. So like she destroyed the sacred timeline or bombed it, but we don't know to what end. And why does she need that one person to come with her? All curiosities here. But what do you think about this list, Kim? And will we be going to Summerall?
Well, it's interesting trying to look at the dates and see what they could mean. But Vormir initially stood out for me because I felt like maybe that could have some effect on Black Widow and Gamora's deaths, potentially, if they could branch off into another timeline. And then New York as well. I could be wrong on this, but I seem to remember it being 1945. If I'm wrong, ignore me, but could that have implications for Captain America?
There's a lot of questions there, and I did think about how the trailers for Loki had a shot where people thought it might be Black Widow, where like he's sitting with a woman with blonde hair and it looks like Vormir. Now I think it's not going to be Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow. I think it's going to be this woman, the variant, or Sylvie, but I bet they do go to Vormir. It just, now that we see that on the list and we have a blonde woman on the show who can reasonably be sitting with him, has his counterpart, that just seems like a place they have to go to. And I also feel like they probably might go to Asgard at some point. It seemed like in this episode for a second, it seemed like they were going to go into Thor Ragnarok, pull it Back to the Future 2, and maybe running around behind the scenes of that movie. That didn't happen. Did you feel teased by a let's go visit Ragnarok mention?
I wanted to see Loki drop Hulk off the Rainbow Bridge, like he said he was going to. I really enjoyed his demonstration with the salad and the salt and the pepper, and Hulk was salt. Highlight.
With his poor salad that he lost there. Let's veer this into we'll go into a couple of AMA questions here as we head towards the end, but I want to thank you guys all for watching today with us. So please subscribe to our channel for videos every weekday if you have not yet done so. Hit that like, hit that bell for us. And Kim mentioned The Matrix earlier, and you know what? You should read Kim's book about The Matrix, Why We Love The Matrix, which you can purchase now. Please. There it is. That is available.
All lovely and green.
So let's look at some of the questions from the chat here. Zayas, sorry, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Zayas Bilu says, Ragnarok wasn't an apocalyptic event and didn't wipe the timeline because others' existence in the didn't wipe the timeline because others' existence in that universe. Same with Pompeii. What does everyone think? Now, actually, I think what you're trying to say here, I did have slight issue. I loved his scene where he was showing, like you said, the salad scene. But I did have a specific question when he brought out that Hulk example and said, if I pushed him off the bridge and that wouldn't matter. I was like, well, that would matter because Hulk made it off Asgard.
Exactly.
Right.
Agreed. I wonder if that was a deliberate mistake.
I do wonder if it's more, I felt like they gave the Ragnarok example because it's A, specifically from the MCU, and B, it's a Loki-centric event. So it was good for storytelling purposes. But it was funny that there is a big difference between Ragnarok and Pompeii, which is presumably no one in central Pompeii made it out of there. Because I think what he was saying was a great thought, which is, yeah, anything you do in those closing moments doesn't matter, because if you kill someone who wasn't supposed to die, they were going to die 2 seconds later, right? But the Hulk example was funny.
Yeah, or didn't the paperwork suggest that they'd all perished, which that wasn't true either.
They did say most. It was hard to tell because I was looking at that too, because you see the word zero and it's like, does that mean zero survived? But they do say killed most Asgardians, so I think there's a little wiggle room the ones who made it.
Yeah, I think they're just implying that like it really was just one refugee ship that got away, whereas like in the movie Ragnarok itself, it looks like 90% of them get away, but it's like, no, that was just one refugee ship of Asgard, and everyone else who we didn't see was just exploded. So that's how I took it.
That's what I think too. Is like you have to surmise that not everyone on Asgard made it to that final fight. You know, there were people that were just in hiding and wherever they were, and Heimdall never got to them. You know, so it sucks for them. Or as Loki said, it's very sad. You know? Let's see. Matthew McGuire says, is Lady Loki bombing the timeline in order to draw out the timekeepers themselves so that she can destroy them? What do you think, Kim? Uh-oh, I got a frozen Kim. Okay, I can finish this out. I mean, we're in the last couple minutes here anyway. So
Kim hates live chat AMA questions.
Right.
That was always a thing in her contract.
She's like, I will tolerate a couple, but not all. I think Matthew, that is definitely possible. The whole like the timekeepers need to show themselves, right? They're kind of the Wizard of Oz in this scenario. Like, who are the people behind the curtain? So you know that's why I think is one of them. Kang seems possible. Kim, you've rejoined us.
Yes, yeah. I don't know what. Well, you know, internet. I'm sure
the magic of magic of Zoom. What do you think,
It's
Kim?
interesting about the time. They loom large in this episode. They're huge, being their statues on several occasions, you know, to give this impression that they're ominous and imposing and all of this. So I still think that there is more to them than meets the eye, and that they might be, you know, necessarily good. But yes, I think that Lady Loki, that is her intention. Yes. For whatever reason. Yeah. Maybe she's not so evil.
Since your connection's not great, Kim, but so I'll close out here with two quick questions. Bean asked, and I love that name, I feel like Mobius could be bad. He keeps talking about how people change, and that might be referring to him. He's gone against the TVA. Personally, I don't want Mobius to be bad, and I don't think he will be. I think he's got a pure heart. Am I just projecting because I want Owen Wilson to be good in the MCU? What do you think, Kim? Is Mobius going to have a heel turn on us?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think he's good. I think he will find that he's more of an individual than he's experienced throughout his life so far. He will get to.
A jet ski has got to be in our future. That's all I'm going to say about that. And then I'll just close it out here with Leon Avery 3 asking about what our thoughts are on the music throughout the episode, saying he personally enjoyed the mid-1900s that came from outer space, like sci-fi element to it. I will just say I love the score to the show in general. I love the kind of eerie sound to it, as uses the theremin, which is always great for weirdness. I will say I agreed with, I saw Lon made a little tweet where he was clearly referencing Loki about how it looks like there's only one song came from the 80s, which is probably time to retire Holding Out for a Hero for a while, which was just in the Masters of the Universe trailer last week. Gets used a lot. It's great. I get it, but the 80s, there's so many great songs in the 80s, so probably time to retire Holding Out for a Hero. But otherwise, I love the score to this show. What do you think, Kim, of the music?
Yeah, I love the score. Natalie Holt is the composer. I said last week that how much I love the score. But also I loved the use of Holding Out for a Hero here. I thought it worked brilliantly, and I'd like to see more songs throughout the rest of the series. And I'm thinking specifically we could have, in an homage to Eddie Murphy in 48 Hours, we could have Tom Hiddleston singing The Police's Roxanne.
All right, now I want that. That should be the finale. He will sing Roxanne while Owen Wilson rides a jet ski, and all will be happy. There'll be happiness at the end of the timeline. Kim, thanks for joining me. Thanks to everyone who's been joining us in the chat today for this. We will be back talking more about Loki next week with the third episode. Thanks, guys, and we'll see you next time. Bye.